A common theme I've seen this offseason is how Toronto Raptors' young and up-and-coming stars are constantly being underrated and overlooked. And not just by the American media, no, but by Raptors fans as well. And with extra motivation from that list that came out from ESPN's top 100 players in the NBA, it sparked me to go on a little bit of a rant, give a little analysis on where I expect the Toronto Raptors players and stars to come into this next season, as well as why they're being underrated and overlooked by really everyone, Raptors fans included. In addition, Precious Achiuwa dropped some knowledge on his mindset heading into this upcoming season, along with a bunch of other Raptors news. So without further ado, let's dive straight into it. Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here at the Raptors side, just breaking down the latest Toronto Raptors news. And before we dive into anything, just want to give a little plug to our second channel, right? Or, our other channel. We have a bunch of channels on Digest Media. I've been plugging them, the Jays, the Leafs, F1, all that sort of stuff. But Marcel Martin and I have been trying to cover all the latest NBA news, dropping daily vids for the past week on everything surrounding the association. If you want your fix, more fix of Digest Media, talking more basketball, get the live stream legend Marcel Martin in your ear as well, right? Definitely check out Courtside Digest. We dropped a video earlier today as well, and it would mean the world for you guys to just check it out. See if you enjoy the vids, similar style to what we have going on over here, but covering all things NBA. So definitely tell your friends, it helps us out big time, and I appreciate all of you. But, we're the Raptors Digest as well. We're not slacking on our Toronto Raptors content. And the first thing we're discussing, as mentioned in the intro, is Raptors stars about to make the NBA look silly. Now, this quote is coming directly from, the little title, the little chapter here. It's words taken verbatim from Zach Lowe, where he essentially said, right, after the top 100 list was given, I'll break down those rankings in this segment as well, but OG Anunoby specifically, he said, is going to make the NBA world look silly for ranking him 75th in the NBA top 100 rankings, and he had to clarify, which is crazy enough, that it was too low. The ranking was too low for OG Anunoby, and obviously I felt that. You guys know how much of a homer I am with OG Anunoby. Regardless of where they're placed, regardless of where they're at, I'm probably going to have a higher view of our players, but that is what it is. That's what happens every offseason. I'll take the heat, I'll take the flame, but I feel like coming into this year, with the exception of maybe Scotty Barnes, a lot of our guys are just being straight up underrated by not just the American media, which happens year in, year out. That's not a new story. But Raptors fans have kind of been sleeping on the team that we have coming into this year. And now maybe a part of that is how the East has definitely improved this offseason. The Cleveland Cavaliers got significantly better with acquiring Donovan Mitchell. A healthy 76ers team might be improved. They also got Melton there. They got Montrezl Harrell. They got some guys that can help out that squad. Obviously, the Celtics just made it to the finals. The Bucks will be back healthy. Who knows what will happen with the Brooklyn Nets? The East is definitely going to be better this upcoming season. And they can't forget about the Bulls or the Miami Heat either. There's that. And some people might be saying, we don't have those big names like those other teams in the Eastern Conference. We're going to be trash. We're going to be this. We're going to be that. But I think one thing a lot of Raptors fans are forgetting is how we have internal development. We have growth that happens year in, year out. We just signed head coach Rico Hines as an assistant that will be literally in-house, cooking up the bags of all of our players, improving the skills day in, day out, not even just on off-season training. We saw the impact he had Pascal Siakam. We saw the development from players like Fred VanVleet, Norman Powell. Heck, even DeLon Wright had significant growth when he was here. Jakob Poeltl, guys that we took from the G League system, got opportunities down there and turned them into, proper NBA players, whether they're with our team currently or not, right? The Raptors just have a way of improving players year in, year out. And if people don't think young guys like Gary Trent Jr., OG Anunoby, Precious Achiuwa aren't going to take a leap this upcoming season, heck, even Pascal Siakam with his first proper off-season of development, first proper off-season where there's no lockdowns going on, where he's not going through shoulder surgery in 3 years, right? If we don't think that these guys are going to improve coming into this season, you're playing yourself. You're fooling yourself coming into this season, and specifically guys like Gary Trent Jr. I don't know what's gone into people's heads. People think he's just a one-way shot chucker. No, Gary Trent Jr. can knock down threes, obviously at a high clip. He's one of the best mid-range shooters in the NBA. He's one of the most elite ISO scorers in the game. in the game. On top of it, he's top 7 in deflections and steals. He's very mobile. Yes, he risks at times and sometimes gets burned on defense, but I think the playoffs sort of just completely transposed people's view of Gary Trent Jr.'s defense. The guy was sick. The guy was dying with the flu, and you guys expected him to be clamping up James Harden and Tyrese Maxey? That's utter foolishness, right? I'm not saying you guys. I'm just saying people that are criticizing the defense in general. But Gary Trent Jr. is being remarkably slept on. OG Anunoby has improved his game year after year after year. I know I've been gassing up the handle. I probably hyped that up too much, but it's definitely taken some improvements. His shot percentages from the three-point line have been great. We saw him knock down some dribble pull-up jump shots last year, but unfortunately, injuries have been the one thing that have held him back. And if we get a fully healthy OG Anunoby season, he's gonna take that step up. That's what all of the past data is gonna show. The only thing holding back OG Anunoby is injury. So if he can stay healthy, we gotta gas this guy up. Precious Achiuwa, look at the steps he took over this past season. I've been banging the propaganda from the start of last year, but Precious Achiuwa is an elite big man in the NBA, and he's just being completely overlooked by people's conversations and stuff. And then obviously our all-stars, Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam. I can't talk about them enough, but Raptors fans included. I want to get that rant out, a little disjointed rant before I get into the usual critiques of ESPN's rankings where they have OG 75th, whereas I said at the beginning, Zach Lowe said he's going to make people look silly. I think Scotty Barnes is fairly rated high, probably a little bit of a generous rating. They're projecting him to improve, but 39th there. Fred VanVleet 38th and Pascal Siakam 30th. Fred I can get just because the second half of his season last year was tough due to injury, but Pascal Siakam was an all-NBA guy this most recent season. Having him at 30th after he had a really strong playoff performance, especially in the second half of those playoff series, that 30's too low. But I don't even want to give them too much time of day. I'm more so talking to the diehards. What are we doing? Not hyping up our team, not gassing up our young guys, the development that we can take. What are we doing? I know there was hype for Kevin Durant, and Gary Trent Jr. is not Kevin Durant. OG, I know he's not Kevin Durant, but you know what? They're really, really good. Really, really good at basketball, and we're going to have a really exciting year for this Toronto Raptors team. Anyways, enough of me just gassing up our squad. I've been doing that for, 7 minutes now at this point. Let me know if I'm being too much of a homer. I get it. I accepted that role as in Raptors fandom, but man, I feel like we're just sleeping too much on our team. I think that's just something that's been happening across the fan base. People haven't even been reacting to this list that much. OG, I know he might be a little bit high. I saw a couple of those reports. Fred VanVleet. There shouldn't be this. Fred VanVleet was an all-star last season. Was an all-star. Put up 54 points in a game. Go watch some of the highlights of him in January, December, before he had that knee inflammation and started struggling the second half of the year. This guy is a beast, and he was still good even when he was playing through a knee injury. That's all I have to say. The next thing we're diving into, the next thing we're talking about, I brought him up in that little rant I had, but Precious Achiuwa has a different mindset. I feel the voice changing with this. It's a more stoic vibe. I don't know. But I'll show the graphic here. But essentially, Precious Achiuwa has a different approach coming into the season. And, quote, I have a different type of mindset right now. I'm really focused and I understand what it takes. I'm ready to go out there this next season and play the best of my ability and give it my all. Definitely try to win all games and go further than we did in this postseason. And this is in response to Nick Nurse. Wait till this year, because every time I see him this summer, I discussed this earlier in the year, but it's total focus, total intensity. I mean, something happened to him where he now understands what playing in the NBA is all about. He is on a mission. That's what Nick Nurse had to say. And then Precious Achiuwa just essentially thanks Nick Nurse for the compliment there. But Precious Achiuwa himself, right? That wasn't just some Nick Nurse banging the propaganda out himself, right? Over the summer, which, obviously coaches sometimes try to do, GMs sometimes try to do. Precious Achiuwa acknowledged the shift in mindset he has coming into this year, and that's going to be big for Precious Achiuwa because the physical intangibles have not been a question ever with Precious Achiuwa. I mean, heck, he was compared to Giannis at times during his pre-draft comparisons and profiles and stuff. I know they're always kind of wank and wild, those wanky wonky, whatever you want to call them, those pre-draft comparisons, but Precious Achiuwa has those physical tools, those physical gifts. Now with Miami, he wasn't able to spread his wings and try out those different skills. And last year, I think sort of opened himself up to trying out different things, dribbling the basketball, shooting threes, and that's what Nick Nurse allowed him to do. And obviously Precious was very focused on scoring. There wasn't much passing coming from Precious Achiuwa during this most recent season, but Precious Achiuwa seems to come into this year, and I feel like there's more of this quote clearly states it. He's on a mission to start winning games, to play like an NBA player, right? He knows the talent that he has at this point. Now it's channeling it into winning basketball. And if we get that type of Precious where all those skills, all that raw potential is molded into like a winning player, that's huge. That's huge for this Toronto Raptors team. Let me know how excited you guys are about Precious Achiuwa coming into this year. The next thing we're discussing, the next thing we're talking about is a potential Jay Crowder trade. Now, I already plugged it earlier. Courtside Digest, we broke down the report that Jay Crowder is essentially asked out of playing for the Phoenix Suns, and the Suns are actively looking to trade Jay Crowder. Now, this might change with their change of ownership, which I covered in this most recent video of Courtside Digest, plugging the Courtside Digest left, right, and center. But I've seen a few Raptors fans say, hey, maybe Jay Crowder could be a guy that we end up making a trade for. And, enough of people said it that I figured I'd bring it up, see what they have to say, because Jay Crowder is the guy that fits the archetype of a Toronto Raptors mold. Really good defender, can knock down threes. He's a big wing. I don't know if he's fully 6'9" or not. I should have looked up his height, but is definitely a guy that would fit this Toronto Raptors system. However, looking at our team right now, I think he might be a little bit redundant, and that might be blasphemous to say, from considering Masai Ujiri only signed 6'9" guys, especially this the previous off season. But now with Otto Porter Jr. there off the bench, who sort of is a better Jay Crowder, right? Chris Boucher there, a longer 3-and-D wing. Thaddeus Young. They all play the similar positions, and obviously Scotty Barnes, OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam are going to be in our starting lineup. So if we're going to give up assets to end up acquiring Jay Crowder, who's on a $10 million contract, right? If we can get him for like Khem Birch, sure. I don't think the Suns, who are on win now mode themselves, are going to accept that type of package. But if we can get him for cheap, sure, I'd love to bring him in. But I think if we're going to make a deal, I'd rather focus on a guy like Jordan Clarkson. That's more of a surefire bucket getter that can play the guard position, can create shots for himself, because really only Gary Trent Jr. and Fred VanVleet at this point are those types of shot makers in terms of jump shooting. Siakam can create his own shots. Scotty Barnes, I expect to be able to, but only real proven guys are really Gary Trent Jr. and Fred VanVleet at times in terms of that specific skill. So that Jordan Clarkson-esque guy would be a player I'm more excited in bringing off the bench and actually going out and acquiring. But let me know if you guys would want Jay Crowder in the comment section below. The next thing we're talking about is the way team requirements have been dropped. The COVID protocols that required players to be vaccinated to come over the border and play in Toronto, they've essentially been lifted. According to the Global Mail, Canada to make Arrive Can optional and drop the vaccine requirement over the border by September 30th. And honestly, makes sense. Probably expected all the mandates, all the restrictions and all that stuff have been lifted. I know I've heard some doctors say that it might get bad during this fall, this winter, especially if a new variant ends up popping up. But this is to be expected. The Raptors are not going to have their home court advantage. And honestly, there's no need. We don't need players to have to sit out when they come to play us. So for the best, we want to beat teams at their full strength and get to see those star players coming up. But we'll see if that ends up coming back into full force if it picks up again in the winter, which I doubt. I think people are done with the lockdowns for at least now. But so that's an update on the Raptors home court advantage. The final thing that we're looking at, and it's a positive, nice little heartwarming story. Obviously, Aron Baynes, Raptors tank commander a couple seasons ago, won over the hearts of a lot of Raptors fans because he was a good guy, showed a lot of effort on a team where he was just asked to do way too much as the starting center. And Aron Baynes, unfortunately, the season following, the summer following his tenure with the Toronto Raptors, ended up suffering a neck injury, being paralyzed for a point, and there's question marks about whether he'd be able to walk again, much less play basketball. Now, we heard earlier in the summer that he was going to sign with the Team Australia, but he finally got to play. In his first game since his horrific injury. And quote, said it was so much fun. So shout out to Aron Baynes, man. I'm happy the guys be able to be back on the court and body set some screens, knock down some threes. Well, wishing all the best for our guy Aron Baynes. But folks, you guys are the best for making this far. Check out the Instagram, the TikTok, the Twitter, all that cool stuff. Subscribe to Courtside Digest, helps us out big time. And subscribe to Raptors Digest too. We're on that road to 26,000 subscribers. But enough of me rambling. You guys are the best. I'm signing out. Cheers.